The Canon RF 100mm macro lens is my go-to lens for close-up photography. Now, it features an excellent autofocus system, but if you find the need to manually focus this in your scenario, you can do so using the manual focus gear sleeve. Now, let me show you how to put that together in a DL housing. The first thing we're going to do is remove the dust cap and the gear sleeve retainer by using the tool and simply unthreading it from the port base. We are not going to end up using this with this manual focus sleeve, but do keep this with your spare parts along with the dust cap. We're going to remove the body cap from the camera. Keep that with your spare parts, of course. And this is the manual focus sleeve for the RF 100mm lens. Now, you'll notice that there are 3 friction pads. Those are going to friction fit against the lens and interface with the manual focus ring on the lens itself. Due to its shape and size, it doesn't require the gear sleeve retainer. What we'll do is take the teeth side, face that down. Those teeth will interface with the gear on the inside of the housing, which leads over to the drive gear. So when we turn the knob on this side of the housing, you'll notice that the gear sleeve also in turn moves. So what we'll do is we'll make note of the red dot on the top of the camera. Of course, that's going to correspond to the red dot on top of your lens. Now, before we get too far down the line here, I'm going to go ahead and set this to full. I'm going to set this to manual focus in this particular scenario. There are ways of overriding autofocus and shooting in manual focus, and that'll depend on what camera you have, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to switch this to manual focus. I'm going to leave stabilization on, remove the back cap from the lens, line the red line up with the red line on the camera body, and I'm going to feed it down in through the manual focus sleeve. You'll notice that when you get to about this point, you'll feel the pads interface with the ring. Simply press it down gently until you feel it meet your camera body. And then just like you would normally, you're gonna bayonet the lens onto your camera body. Make sure it clicks into place. Of course, we're gonna need to remove the lens cap. Now, when we turn the knob on the side of the housing, you'll notice that you are in turn moving the manual focus ring on the lens. Now, in order to aid myself underwater, I will set up focus peaking in my camera so that I can change and see what I'm focusing on. That way I only have to touch this knob and the trigger, and that's all I have to do to manually focus underwater. From this point, all you need to do is combine the ports and accommodate the lens. For the RF 100mm lens, we are going to combine the 20mm extension plus the 42mm extension along with the flat port. In order to do that, before I get started, I like to take all 3 of these components and I like to unthread all 3 of each of the thumb screws on each part. This ensures that when they get put together, they don't snag an O-ring and we don't compromise the seal. Now it's a matter of just putting everything together, and to do so, it doesn't matter whether or not we use the 20mm or the 42mm first. So what we're going to do is take some of the included Ikelite lubricant between my finger and thumb, put just a little bit on there. It doesn't require a lot of lubricant. The lubricant overcomes the friction so that things don't roll out of place. It also gives you an opportunity to feel. So when you visually inspect the O-ring, you can also feel for anything that might affect the seal that you might not be able to see. In that case, I will put lubricant on the O-ring. And now I'm going to turn my attention to the mating piece. In this case, it'll be the 42mm. And I'm going to run my finger along that sealing surface. Again, I'll apply a little bit of lubricant here, but it also gives me an opportunity to feel for anything that might affect our seal. You'll notice that each part has 3 thumb screws. Those thumb screws line up with each other, but more importantly, the thumb screw aligns with the pocket in the mating piece. So all we have to do is align, push down until they're mated completely, all the way around the circumference. And now all we have to do is simply tighten the thumb screws of that top piece. The seal occurred when we put the 2 pieces together, so tightening these down beyond thumb tightness is not required. This just keeps the 2 parts from pulling apart. So we'll do the same thing on the top extension. And the sealing surface of the flat port. Check to make sure that our glass is clean. Line up the thumb screws, push down until it's equal around the circumference, and tighten up the 3 thumb screws of the flat port. Now the port base on the housing features the same O-ring, so we'll apply some lubricant to it. Visually inspect. Make sure that our thumb screws are not protruding to the inside diameter of our part. Apply a little bit of lubricant and check for anything that could affect the seal. Now, line up one of the thumb screws with the pockets on the port base. Press down and tighten the thumb screws. And that's as simple as that. Now we can manually focus our 100mm lens underwater. If you have any questions about this installation or the RF 100mm lens, drop us a comment down below or feel free to shoot us an email to ikelite@ikelite.com.